Hey beautiful people, it's n8n from Simply Grow again, and today we're going to discuss one of the simplest yet most powerful plays, use cases, scenarios, call it whatever you like, for pre-sales campaigns, for outreach campaigns, which is start with email, and then anyone that bounces or doesn't reply to all of our steps in our sequences, just push them to LinkedIn. Why? Why so powerful? Because the chances are we invested some time into building our lists of prospects. Maybe based on sales triggers, maybe on our ICPs. We clean the list, try to find valid email addresses, then verify it once, maybe twice. Everything is fantastic. And then we start sending those emails and we get some bounces. Why? We did everything right. Well, most likely, email servers of those companies that we're reaching out to, people that are working at those companies, their email server is most likely configured in a way that doesn't allow external emails. Or maybe they didn't respond. Maybe we landed in their junk/spam folder. Or maybe they saw our emails, but they were not compelled to reply or forgot to reply, etc. So it would be a shame not to try to contact those people by a different channel, let's say LinkedIn. So since we've invested time to build those lists, we know those are good prospects, and we will not let anyone behind. Now we're going to use n8n as a glue between our cold emailing platform of our choice and our LinkedIn automation platform of our choice. In today's case, we're going to use Smartlead for email automation and HeyReach for LinkedIn automation. So the concept, I believe, is simple. Now, the devil is always in details, and let's discuss the implementation of this play and why we have some extra steps and how to implement and what should we be aware of. First and foremost, we are starting with a node inside n8n scenario, node as a webhook. So it's simply when we type in webhook, it's instant webhook, and then we need to configure this. So we need to say it's a post, test URL, copy this, and go to our Smartlead, and then create a webhook that will call it somehow, paste this URL, and pick and choose our events. Now, there is no right or wrong way. We can choose multiple events and add the webhook. Now, the trick is during testing, if we pick multiple ones, this button for testing, for sending test data, will be disabled because Smartlead is saying, hey, I cannot send multiple events, data for multiple events. I simply cannot do that. So just decide on one. Or you can make separate webhooks and simply leave it as it is. So basically, that's what we're doing. We're using post method because we are receiving a package of information. Okay, so that's what we did. And basically, if we test this workflow or just this node and go here, and let's say we go here and send test webhook. What we're getting, some dummy information, and we can see the structure of this JSON that we're getting, some dummy information from Smartlead. Also, it's always good to have official documentation open so we can see what's happening. For example, email bounce, the structure is explained, some fields were deprecated, removed, renamed, etc. Then we have sample, similar to what we got, and further explanation. So it's always useful to have official documentation of the platform that we're working with close by. And then what we're getting, we can notice one thing that is missing for our case. Well, since we're sending this lead or these leads to HeyReach, what do we need for LinkedIn automation? Well, we need their LinkedIn URL. For whatever reason, people behind Smartlead decided not to send additional information about leads, such as LinkedIn URL. So we can while uploading leads to Smartlead, we can add those, map it as custom fields or built-in LinkedIn URL, etc., etc. But when we're using webhooks, we will not receive those pieces of information. So what do we need to do? We need one step to have somewhere, and I hope you're using a CRM or some single source of truth for your leads. For example, I'm using HubSpot for my agency, and then also a lot of my clients are using HubSpot. So, and we're following the logic. Build a list, upload it to HubSpot, make sure it's in HubSpot before pushing it into Smartlead campaign. That way, for multiple reasons. In this case, it's good, then we can use this node built-in integration, native integration with HubSpot, and just say, okay, so this, we connected it via app token, and say, okay, this is, we're searching for contacts based on what? Email equals dynamic field. So we're taking to email property from JSON and saying, okay, what do we need to get from HubSpot? Most importantly, we need this LinkedIn URL. So we can pass it to our HeyReach. Now, if you're using HeyReach with n8n, as of this recording, we don't have native integration between HeyReach and n8n, so we need to use generic HTTP module, meaning we need to create an HTTP request towards HeyReach using their API endpoints, aka URLs that we want to target, such as this URL. And we need documentation of HeyReach. Now, here we have a decision to make. HeyReach works in a way that we have a list of leads, and when we create a campaign, we need to specify from which list of leads this campaign should take leads and contact them or do whatever we set them to do. So through API, we can add people leads to a list or directly into campaign. My personal preference is to do to campaign directly, because if we send leads to list, this paragraph is super important, which explains what is happening. For example, we have a batch of leads and everyone goes through a campaign inside HeyReach. The campaign will stop and that's it. If we add a lead to a list, nothing happens. But if we add lead to finished campaign, the campaign will restart for these new leads, which I think is more practical than just adding to lists. Now, here is the documentation of HeyReach. We can use this part, which explains everything, like the URL, the headers, and everything else, which is like we're sending a package full of data, and we need to state the recipient and the address and everything else. So you can kind of look at these headers as such information. So we can copy this, go to Smartlead, and instead of manually adding those fields, there's this convenient feature that says import CURL or curl, or however you want to pronounce it. And when I say import, it will create these fields like header fields. When we do that, we need to go back and say, okay, add leads to campaign. And what we need to do, this is the contents of our package. So something that we need to pay attention to, if we keep this property, we need to state it. The idea behind this property is because HeyReach allows us to have multiple senders, multiple LinkedIn accounts connected to a sequence, to state explicitly, for this lead, I want to be contacted from this profile. If we don't know that, we don't need that, then we will just remove it. The minimum of information in this package that we're sending to HeyReach that is required is basically first name. Let me just expand this. So it's first name, last name, email address, I believe, even maybe it's not mandatory, but still, and profile URL. Of course, like LinkedIn profile URL, we have dynamic fields that will be populated. And when it comes to first name and last name, this is another quirk of Smartlead, which is even though we've uploaded leads with separate fields, first name and last name, Smartlead is sending full name. So we have an option to split the full name into two things with a little bit of JavaScript, and then populate and then send it to HeyReach like that, which I don't think is important because HeyReach works in a way that even if, for example, I've added my colleague without first name and last name, and if we hover here, we'll see that this field will be populated based on what is currently on LinkedIn. So when HeyReach pulls all the information about these leads, it will already populate the full name, and then we'll be able to use first name, last name, dynamic variables. So from that perspective, we don't care about passing first name and last name. And with that, we also need to pay attention to campaign ID, and we need to hard code, meaning go to HeyReach and go to campaigns and open a campaign and copy paste this URL and set it inside here, and voila, that should be all. So let's give it a go and go here, send this, and everything passed. We can research, investigate, see if everything is fine. Yes, this is this dummy contact, we received it, and added lead count, so we've added one lead to the campaign. Everything is great. One variation of this campaign is if you want to separate campaigns inside HeyReach for whatever reason. Maybe you want to say something a little bit different to people that bounced versus people that just didn't respond to your emails. We can use the same setup, but just use a switch node and set it up in a way that if this dynamic field of the name of the event that happened is manual step reached, okay, then this is one branch. Or if it's email bounce, again, based on official documentation of Smartlead, then we have a separate branch, and same modules, HTTP module, but with different campaign IDs. So basically that's the difference. And yeah, that's basically what we need to do in order to use this. And when it comes to Smartlead and detecting if someone got all steps from a sequence, there's no such event. If we take a look at their official documentation, there's no like, hey, the end of campaign for a lead, but we can use manual step reached, and inside our sequence in Smartlead, just say, okay, last email, then for example, 5, 7, 10 days, and then add the manual step, which would be the trigger to send this lead, this person to HeyReach. So basically that's a workaround. Some other platforms might have dedicated event when someone reaches the end of campaign. Basically, that's it. You'll have access to this scenario that you can import in your n8n in the description of this video. And if this video is part of an article, also a link where you can find all of this. So yeah, hopefully this is useful to you, and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer it. To your success.